welcome back to the Arsenal Fan Theory podcast. Obviously, not the best day to be recording after what happened last night to City or at City, but I mean, at least we can talk some football that we haven't been able to do in this on this program or in general for a while. Dean, obviously, last night was very disappointing. Firstly, thanks for being back with us, you and Mike. Right, um, So yeah, obviously last night was very disappointing. But I think if we look at the first 25 minutes of the game, excluding this Xhaka injury, there were a few positives to take out of the game. I personally feel that there was a lot of energy in the team, and we didn't give City a lot of space, to work at the ball. But that obviously could have been because of City's rustiness as well. They just got into the feel of the game. What is your take on the first 25 minutes of the games? Let's focus on that.
Yes, Brendan. Firstly, it's a pleasure to be back. Um, yeah, and just thank you to everybody to carry on watching. Yeah, firstly, I agree with you. We looked okay or solid in the first 25 minutes, but yeah, I don't feel. Yeah, like you said, it could also have been down to City's rustness, and I do agree a bit with that as well. If you saw City in the first 25 minutes, their press on our back line wasn't as intense as they continued pressing us after the first 25 minutes. As you saw, look, I think we played a lot better out of the back. That's possibly why, as well, they didn't press us as hard as they normally do because they wanted to see the quality. And yeah, to me, once they kind of figured out our quality and seen exactly how much quality we have in that sense, then they started pressing us more and more, which resulted in us having hardly any possession after that.
Yeah, well, we'll get to the negatives a bit later, but going down to 10 men against one of the best possession based teams in the world at the moment was just crazy. So I think we'll have to talk about that negative impact. But staying on the positives for now, Mike. Obviously, we can look at Bernd Leno with a standout performance again. His distribution was a bit worrisome at times. I think he can still work on his distribution. But Bernd Leno, there are a few other standout performers that we can take a few positives on. Who would you like to highlight with Leno?
Well, obviously, Brent would be the first choice for all the Arsenal fans, I would say. Um, yes, there was a few of the youngsters that also had a good game. I think when Doozy played quite well. Well, up until the second half, you could see he was starting to tire a bit. Um, well, Mustafi actually had a decent game in defence for me. He was obviously our most solid defender. I mean, Murray only lasted like 5 minutes anyway, and well, we all know what happened with Luiz. But apart from that, the biggest positive was the first 25 minutes. There was a lot of discipline in the team. We didn't want to give City too much chances, but they just eventually grew into the game and they were too good for us.
Yeah, well, I think a big thing you can say about Mustafi's performance is he was quite anonymous, and being a defender, I think that's always a positive. If you don't have too much to single out of what the defender did throughout the game, you probably did a lot of things right because it's not a very glamorous role, right? Dean, what do you think of Tierney's comeback performance? Obviously, this has been his first game of competitive game since December. And I think there were a lot of positives to take out of this game as well. Yes, he got turned once or twice by Mares, but mostly while he was still on the left back position, he handled the task quite well.
Yes, Brendan, no, I agree with you. Kieran Tony, we've been waiting for this player to start cementing himself in the first team for quite some time now, and he's still got a way to go to do that. But I agree with you. He held his own. Yes, Morris turned him a couple of times, but we're speaking of Riyad Mahrez. This is a PFA Player of the Year when Leicester won the Premiership. So to like you say, he got turned a couple of times, but for Morris not to have been so much in the game, well, look, he made an impact. All the City players made an impact, clearly by the scoreline, but I do think he kept Riyad Mahrez a lot quieter than he would have been, against Kolasinac.
Um, you know, it's. I think a lot of people are quick to forget. In a game when you play one of the top teams like a City or a Liverpool or whatever, you're gonna have to withstand some type of pressure throughout the game. It's not gonna be, you're not gonna control the game. You're not gonna have possession all the time. And I think that was quite promising throughout the first 25 minutes was, yes, we were under pressure a bit, but we withstood it. They didn't really create open goal scoring chances. And if you look at City's losses against Leicester, against Wolves, they were on the attack 90% of the game. It's just Leicester and Wolves were able to keep out, their threats, and they took their chances when they had them. So I think, yes, um, it was disappointing, and we'll get on to why it was so disappointing. But if we just could have ridden out until halftime, I think the game would have looked much different at the end of the day. So positives now being done, because that's probably the only positives we can take out of the game. We'll have to go on to the negatives. And let's go into the first one. I think Granit Xhaka's injury was a big negative, not just for the City game, but potentially for the rest of the season. He is obviously a key cog in our team, and you could see that with the way the formation works. Mike, why do you think Xhaka is going to be such a big miss, and why was he such a big miss in this game?
Well, Zaka is clearly an important part of Arteta's plans going forward. He's been relying on him a lot since he's come to the club, and Zaka's actually been performing a lot better ever since. Um, as well as the fact that we've played a lot of our midfielders against City. So they're all going to be tired. They just were out of football for 3 months, and they've got about a 3-day break, and then most of them are going to be expected to play at least 60 minutes again. So to have Zaka going forward would just help a lot with the squad rotation, and he's a senior part of the squad.
Well, Dean, I think me and you just spoke about this off screen before we started recording. And I want to touch on what Michael mentioned a bit earlier about Guendouzi being one of the shining lights of this performance, if we can say it like that. Um, if you look at Guendouzi and Ceballos individually, I think there's a lot of positives you can take out of their performance. But if you look at the collective, I feel that midfield combination was key in contributing to giving City so much room in the midfield because they weren't as disciplined. Obviously, none of them, or not any of them, are seen as deep lying midfielders, but they didn't stick to the task at the night.
Yeah, Brendan, as you said, we did touch on it a bit off screen. Yeah, at the end of the day, if you look at their individual performance, I agree with you. There were some standout parts. Guendouzi, for me, you can see Arteta's worked on him. Guendouzi is that raw talent. You saw him under Emery. He ran around, in my opinion, like a headless chicken. He just ran up and down, not necessarily knowing his job, and he sometimes ran without even needing to run. And last night I saw a lot with Guendouzi that he wasn't just running around for running around's sake. And you can see that was taught into him. But, at the end of the day, he does drift out of position too much. So that's something, Arteta will probably work on. But yeah, in terms of their positioning and, almost that reinforcement for the defense that was not there to be found. You could see that the second Shaka left the field, although it was only 5 minutes. But, yeah, we just didn't have that leadership or that strength, that guy to break up play and restart play at the same time. I think that's one of Shaka's um, main attributes is that he the way he starts play.
Yeah, well, I also
Used to be a
think so.
problem.
Sorry to interrupt you. He's also a bit of a marshal, meaning that he keeps reminding other players of their responsibilities.
Yeah.
So sorry. So just wanted to throw that
Yeah.
in.
So exactly. No, no, that's 100% right. He's a leader. He's been the Swiss captain since cheap as the Oak was like 23, 24 years old. So he is a leader. And sadly, we haven't, of course, with the confrontation and everything that happened in the Crystal Palace game. Of course, that took, in a sense, the authority away from him from being a leader because he lost the fans.
Mm.
So yeah, in my opinion, you can't just have one leader leading the team. So it'll be nice if we can get Shaka back into the fold properly and as a leader again. Possible vice captain or the third choice captain. Of course, the captain. I don't see him becoming captain again, but he needs to be a leader. He needs to be a role model in the squad.
Yeah, look, I must say I was one of the big advocates to get Xhaka out of this team before Arteta joined, but I feel he's improved much more. Well, he's shown a lot of his qualities under Arteta. He's had these
Okay, that is on the phone.
discipline. He's been much more disciplined
I'm
in
busy. I'll do
his
another thing.
positioning, and
Okay.
he's been able to assist. The back line a lot, covering the back line. Mike, I want to go to probably the biggest negative of the day and talk about the David Luiz situation. Right. I think if you look at the stats, you can correlate Arsenal's decline in the game directly with David Luiz's inclusion, because it was at minute 25, more or less, when Luiz was introduced due to the Mari injury. And it was 5 minutes after that, City had three chances, like in a quick succession, where Leno had to come and save us. So, how big of an impact did Luiz make on the team, and in what way?
I feel that last night Luis definitely had a big negative impact on the team. It was like he hasn't been playing not just for the last 3 months. It's like he hasn't been playing football for the whole 2020. It was, we all know what he's capable of and what he's achieved throughout his career, and he is seen as a leader throughout our defense and the dressing room. But it's just so many lapses in concentration, silly mistakes. The first goal they scored through Sterling should never have happened. That's just down to a lapse of concentration. And the same with the second. Well, to me, it looked like he thought the ball was going to go out and he switched off. And that gave Mahrez the opportunity to get in behind him. And once he was past Luis, he basically had no choice but to pull him down. So, yeah, it was a really bad performance. And once going down to 10 men and 2-0 down against City,
Kira,
it's going to
I'm
be a
on the
mountain
phone, boo
to
boo.
climb to try and get back into the game.
But this is what frustrates me, guys. This is one of the things that I can't wrap my head around, right? We've seen Luis, we've seen him perform, we've seen him under Arteta. He's been much more composed, he's been much more controlled, except the big games. Okay, so let's go back all the way to Liverpool. Okay, Arteta wasn't in charge yet. He gave away exactly the same penalty against Salah. He got a red card, they scored the goal, game over. We were out of the game, right? Then we look at the Chelsea game. It wasn't so much his fault. He was trying to make up for Mustafi error, but still, instead of allowing the goal, he tried to stop it silly. Got a red card. Basically, the chance of winning the game was reduced to about 5%, if it was that much. Here we get another big six opposition, a big team, and Luis does the same thing. I just can't understand it. And one thing I remember both of you advocating for is Luis getting a contract extension for the next, well,
Yeah,
at least for the next year. So how do you guys feel? I know it's a very raw, so it's easy to now change your opinion on one game. But I feel it's not just one game; it's compounding. It's been happening in the big games for more than, well, for most of his Arsenal career, which is one season long. But has this changed your opinion in any way, either of you?
yeah, well, I
So
agree.
yeah, Michael.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, Bren. We were probably the two of the first advocates to say he needed to sign at least another year contract because he is seen such as a, a big mentor throughout the squad. But it isn't just the one game; it is throughout the whole season. Like you mentioned, it's all the big games that these things it just continues to happen. So how can you trust a player like that? So I think my opinion has changed a bit. I would probably just maybe let him see out the rest of the season, because we never know what's going to happen with injuries. I mean, we already had two in the first
Yeah,
25 minutes.
But if his contract is not extended, I believe because of the red card, he won't play another game for Arsenal again. Because
Yeah.
his contract stops or expires now at the end of
Mm.
the month.
Yeah, but that's what I'm just saying. Just maybe extend it for till the end of the season. So if there were any injuries to happen again, then he can just help us see out the rest of the season, and then it's time for him to move on.
Dean?
Yeah, so let's just go a bit back on David Luiz's mistakes last night. Um, firstly with that first goal, that pass is literally 20, 25 meters away from David Luiz, and he still couldn't get his body right. You know, to me it was maybe complacency, but he had all the time in the world to position his body. That ball was knocked from far, 20, 25 meters. That ball was knocked from. So he has no excuse not to control or get his body behind the ball. In the second goal, so as you saw, Riyad Mahrez came from the wing in like that.
Mm,
Yeah? David Luiz goes for the player.
yeah,
Technically, that is horrible. That is wrong. What are you protecting? You're protecting your goal. So now, if David Luiz ran a straight line, in a sense, towards the goal instead of running towards the player, he would have been able to block the goal. Do you
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
So I do not understand how,
yeah.
for him to run to the player there, or instead of running to blocking the goal, it's.
Yeah, like Mike
Uh,
said,
I,
it was just a big lapse in concentration. All it can be down
Yeah,
to is a
you can
lapse in
call
concentration.
it a lapse in concentration. I agree with you. The Oak didn't start the game, then he gets called in 8 minutes, 10 minutes into the game to play. But there's no excuse there. How can your
Yeah,
concentration be down 3 months not playing, and you're finally playing a game? And you know, uh, in my opinion, we need to let him go. It's clearly a change from my opinion before the game, where I said extend his contract, but as you said, Brendan, how many games now? The Liverpool, the Chelsea game. So these are just the big games we're talking about, let
mm,
alone the small games.
yeah.
The second he stood on the field last night, I actually started getting nervous for us.
So
You know, we were so calm at the back with Mari and Mustafi there, and then once David Luiz came on, you all of a sudden had this eccentric player with his hair bobbing around as well. It just to me the second he came on, I felt very nervous for us defensively.
well, I read like interesting stats. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was like Luis gave away in his Chelsea career one penalty every 56 games or something, right? And at Arsenal, it's
So
something ridiculous like every one. Well, he gives a penalty away every sixth game, so it's like and
no,
red cards are also similar. Like he only 1 in 59 for Chelsea, and for Arsenal, it's also been 1 in 8 or something like that. Ridiculous.
yeah. So you see, he's not the player. It's starting to feel like he's an inside agent or something like
Yes.
that. Come from Chelsea to make sure we don't hit top four or even European football,
Oh, it's
for the matter of the fact. So it truly feels like he's becoming an inside agent. But yeah,
yeah,
I agree with Michael there that we could need him in terms of legs and his leadership, but I do feel his leadership is now being called into question, because how can a leader let you down in a game like that? Or how can you look to someone as a role model or as your leader if he's the reason that you lost the game. So I don't. Yeah, it's becoming more and more
Yeah,
difficult to make a case for him to stay.
well, he did come out after the game and he took full responsibility, which you'd think a leader would do. But I don't think a leader would put the team in that position in the first place. Um, okay, so I want to move on from Luiz because I feel we all have like a strong opinion on him, and I think, especially so soon after the game, we would love to keep on thrashing him, but there were other 10 other players on the field, or 9 other players on the field for most of the game. Um, so I want to talk about Aubameyang. I've seen a lot of people hate on him for his display. Okay, yes, he was a bit anonymous, but if you look at the highlights, the stats, the runs he made, behind the City defense in the first half, there were 4 clear opportunities for players to put him through, and they just didn't provide him with any type of service. There was just so. Mike, do you agree that? Do you agree with the crowd saying that Aubameyang had such a bad game, or do you think he just maybe got frustrated because he was making all these runs and everything just kept on going against him? It seemed.
Well, Brent, there's arguments to be made for both sides, you know. I definitely agree with you that there were multiple occasions that I saw Aubameyang making a run through, and he could have actually got one-on-one with the keeper, and players either failed to recognize the run or just decided to pick out another pass. So that obviously built up the frustration, but you could see, so probably, yeah, by the second goal, Aubameyang was nowhere to be seen anymore. You could see the frustration on his face. You could see it didn't even look like he wanted to play. So I do agree that he didn't have any help from the team, but as longer, well, the more the game went on, the less of influence he became on it. You know.
Yeah, well, I want to touch on Willock, especially regarding this Aubameyang situation and how little influence Willock actually had in the game.
Okay, I
I
promise when
know
Daddy's finished
when we
over here,
talk
I
about
will let you. I'll open
the
for you. Okay.
when we talk about a defender being not as involved in a game, it's a good thing. But if you talk about a midfielder, especially attacking midfielder, I think that's a cause for great concern. Yes, Willock did cover a lot of ground, so he did track back and he did, put in a tackle here or there, but he had no influence offensively on the game. And I think he was one of the players that was most guilty of not releasing the ball to Aubameyang soon enough. I think I saw 2 or 3 occasions where he could have played Aubameyang through. There was one Tyranny probably should have bent it around to Aubameyang when we had a counter attack, but to him you can at least say he hasn't played a competitive game in 6 months. Where Willock, it seems to be a big trend in his game. Um, so do you feel that Willock was a mistake in this game, Mike?
Well, I do against City. We did talk about him before the game, saying he is the young legs that we want to run up and down the pitch just to tire out the players. But when you start Saka on the right and you start Aubameyang on the left, I think you need a very creative midfield because Saka is playing out of position. We've got Nelson, we've got Pepe. I'm
If
not
I
sure
leave when
what
I'm
the
finished,
reason was
okay? I promise
behind
I'm
the
almost done.
selection, but
I'm almost.
I know Ozil was also left out for
Look in
tactical
your
reasons.
bedroom.
But in a game like this, against such a excellent team, we need that creativity. So I think it might have been a better choice to either start off with Ceballos or put in Ozil.
Yeah, well, we don't know what's going on with the Ozil situation. Arteta mentioned that it was tactical, but I think there's something deeper lying beneath that. But in any case, Dean, what's your opinion regarding the Willock inclusion? His lack of creativity, meaning that he failed to supply someone like Aubameyang with any chances during the game. And also that meant we had to push Saka out to the right hand side where he wasn't as influential as his usual left hand side.
Yeah, so sure, Bernard. I think it is a bit unfair to pick out one player. I don't think there was any creative well, there was no creativity last night from anybody.
Mm.
We didn't have a shot on target for the entire game last night. So to blame one player for not having a single shot on target is a bit unfair, but I fully agree with you. Willock had no creativity on his side, but neither did any other player. Um, yeah, go touch back on the Aubameyang. It is a bit unfair for the fans to blame Aubameyang, in my opinion, but that's because, as you guys just discussed, there were a number of opportunities where he could have been played in behind and been one-on-one with the goalkeeper. It would be a different situation. If we scored 2 goals of 2 touches and those were his only 2 touches of the game, we would have a different conversation.
Yeah.
But um, it's not like he came looking for the ball. It's not like he started dictating or shouting at players to receive the ball. I think only in the 80th minute or the 75th minute did he finally fling his hands up for not being played a ball through. So I think both are to blame, players and our creative players and Aubameyang. Aubameyang, he just wanted everything handed to him on a golden platter last night, which is not right. How can you expect against City, a team that's going to dominate possession, that everything must just fall at your feet? So it is, there's an argument on both sides. Uber is wrong, and in a way, he wasn't fed enough last night. He wasn't. They did not get him involved enough last night. But yeah, touching back on the Willock situation, I think that's why Arteta started him, was for his legs, and as we saw, all of those midfielders, they worked up and down. Positioning, yes, we've had the discussion that positioning wise, defensively, they're not 100%. But these are things, Arteta's going to work on. His oaks are all still young, and I do feel that they can catch up to what he wants to do. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much it. I feel every single player had no form of creativity last night.
I also don't really want to go into much to the tactics of the game, because I think it's unfair to judge a team system, on that type of performance, because we went down to 10 men quite early, and
We
it's
played
just,
most
yeah,
of
it's
yeah.
just how do you expect to play or have your own style of play against a team like City that keeps the ball so well and only have 10 players on the pitch? It's unreasonable. So I don't think it's necessary to even discuss the tactics of the game, because it was ruined
Those
so
aren't
so
the
early.
tactics, yeah. Those aren't the tactics we're going to play against most teams. We just
Yes.
played the reigning champions.
Mm.
It's
So
probably them and Liverpool will be the only two teams that will set up like that. And yeah, I do agree. We were very well set up for the game. The first 20, 30 minutes we were very well set up, but still there was no creativity in
mm,
those. But 10-1, Arteta's hopes there were that let's go into halftime, guys, still at 0-0, and yeah, or try to at least nick a goal during that time, taking in 1-0 at halftime. And it almost worked. If it
it
wasn't for
almost
the
worked.
mistake, it almost worked. His game, yes, we started conceding a lot of opportunities towards the end of the half, but his plan almost worked if it wasn't for an individual area or a goal that should never have been scored. You
Okay, guys. So I want to wrap up this City review. Um, One thing I want to touch on just before we go is, what does this mean to Lacazette and Pepe? Because I think they've also been involved this whole run up to the game again, and obviously they haven't been chosen for various reasons. Most likely the one that they're not as hard workers up and down the pitch, like we mentioned. It was probably one of Arteta's main tactics. So do any of you think we should be concerned regarding their futures, especially like Lacazette? I don't think Nketiah had a great game at all. He made a few good runs, but his finishing and his touches were quite poor on the night. But do you guys think we should be concerned with for those two players based on this game and this selection?
No, Bren, I don't think we need to read into it too much. Like you just mentioned, Arteta was looking for hard workers, and it was down to tactics for the City game. But not only that, I think he was looking forward because we're playing 5 matches in 15 days, and our next game is away Saturday to Brighton Hove Albion. I think he was looking to forward to that match as well.
Oh,
So yeah.
I don't know. If I had to prepare for games, I'd put a lot more preparation into the first game of the season and a game like City. But I get what you're saying, Dean.
Um, yeah, it's difficult. It's the first game. Um, like Mike says, we're playing 15 games in 5 days.
Wait,
Where the normal, sorry,
Yeah.
5 games in
uh,
5 games in 15 days. But where normal, a normal fixture congestion, you're only playing 3 games in 15 days. So yeah, maybe they are looking. You never want to say a manager feels, he's lost this game, which Arteta definitely didn't feel. You could see Arteta went with a proper game plan. What we've also got to consider is having 2 injuries in the first 10 minutes, and you're only allowed to make, 3 sections of 5 subs. So after the first 10 minutes already, his whole game plan has gone out the window. His starting defender didn't play. His starting midfielder didn't play the rest of the game. And then now he's only allowed to make one more set of substitutes where he had to make all 3 of those substitutes in that last set. So that, you know, to yeah, I know I'm going off the question of the Laka and so, but to judge him on all of that is a bit unfair. I think games will work out a lot differently. Then yeah, Lacazette, I do feel is on his way out. The speculation with him to Atletico Madrid hasn't stopped. And I do feel there's a possibility with his exclusion from the first game that there's a bit of truth to it. And he's trying to get Nketiah to come and take his place for next season. But I also didn't understand. I would have had Martinelli instead of Nketiah. I don't know. But yeah, I see Laka going, but I see Pepe staying.
all right. So I think we've done more than enough on the City game. Like I said, I don't want to go into too much detail because it's a one-off situation where we had a red card, we conceded stupid goals. Not much the team can do because of one player on the night. We've got a special guest on the show, Kira. And there she goes.
Kiki, come say hello. Come say hello. Kira, come here.
Okay. Hopefully she'll be
Come
back in the
here.
next segment. All right.
No, now she's shy.
She's a bit shy, but she did make a brief appearance on the show. So I think let's take a 5 minute break and we'll get into the Brighton match preview after that.